Good afternoon again, everybody. Thank you very much once again for joining us. We will now start the presentation without further ado. So we're very pleased to announce that last Friday we successfully launched the version 4 of Expernova. So I'm very excited to be able to present to you the changes, the improvements, and new features that have been incorporated in this new version. It is obviously an ongoing process. We do have more new features to come, and so your customer experience representative will keep you informed with those new features when they become available. If you have any questions during the webinar, I will take them at the end. So you should have on your screen on the right-hand side a small box with the webinar, the GoToWebinar window. And in that window, you should have a section with questions. If you click on the little plus, you should be able to type your questions. And as I said, I will come and answer them at the end of the presentation. So let's begin. What we've got planned for today, hopefully we'll just take 45 minutes of your time. We'll start with a brief introduction to the context surrounding the launch of our version 4, the strategic choices which were taken into account in order to choose the new directions that we've taken for this version. We'll go over the tool as it stands in terms of the content of the database our analysis is based on, and then obviously have a look at what's new. In terms of the practical side of today, we will have a little reminder of how to use the tool, especially the essential differences, obviously, between the version 3 and the version 4, and a reminder of the golden rules, so the different operators that are available to carry out your searches on the tool. Then we'll move over to the main part of today, which will be the live presentation of the version 4. And we'll look at different ways of carrying out the different searches that are now available. Focusing once again on how that's changed from the version 3. And then towards the end of today, we'll look at the features that are available on the new version, and I'll be able to mention briefly some of the features that are planned to be made available over the next few months. So to start us off with, this new version of Expernova has been inspired by the results from the survey and the expert testimonies that we gathered from key opinion leaders on innovation and research partnerships for our white paper, collaborative white paper that we published last summer or last September. And the tool has strategically been designed to facilitate R&D processes and the identification of scientific expertise in an increasingly complex network environment. So the idea is today is that Expernova is aiming to help our clients gain a clear vision of expertise and global networks related to their area of research or technological development. So here on the slide in front of you, you see a list of some examples of strategic questions that should be asked when looking to set up a research project or search for external expertise. Now, obviously, different questions will be more relevant to some of our clients than others. And what we're going to look at today is how we've managed to develop Expernova, creating this version 4, in order to better respond to these key strategic questions. So, firstly, a reminder of Expernova in terms of our database, the content of the database, on which all of our analysis available through the tool has been based. So the content itself hasn't actually changed from the version 3. We're still covering the 3 global regions that you see in the slide in front of you. Please remember that Europe is in a continental sense, so all of the continental European countries, but also others which can apply for European project funding. So we are indexing Russia, Israel, and Turkey, as well as the standard European continental countries. In terms of the different types of scientific works that we've integrated into the database, once again, these haven't changed, but just to point out, those of you that don't know, towards the end of last year, we actually managed to integrate another type of project into our database, and these are the American government-funded projects. So these are funded by federal organizations in North America, providing funding to small companies and organizations in order to encourage them to engage in innovation and collaborative R&D projects. So these 4 types of scientific works are integrated into the Expernova database, and based upon this information, we're able to provide you with the different mapping of scientific expertise in terms of the global networks that I'll be able to show you today live on the tool, the identification of scientific skills, and as I said, the mapping out of those scientific skills across the different scientific profiles that we make available for all of the individual researchers and organizations working on a particular topic in terms of research domain or technology. So, using the scientific data and the analysis and the profiles of scientific skills that we provide through the tool, we've developed new ways of searching through this information and adapted the way it's presented on the tool and the interpretation of results in order to better respond to your strategic questions. So, looking at the different ways the tool is used, the different elements that make up the tool today. Obviously, the tool is still in the form of a search engine. So now what we're making available is different types of searches, which I'll be able to show you today when we move on to the live version. In terms of identification of skills, we're still providing skills profiles, but we've changed the way that we're presenting this information in order to give a better overview of skills specific to your strategic questions, your strategic projects. In terms of gaining an overview of your R&D ecosystem, we've managed to vastly develop the display of global networks through various different features available on the tool. In terms of identifying key trends within your industry, there are new graphics available which better represent the changing trends in terms of publication of scientific information and scientific collaborations within your industry. And then lastly, in terms of being able to integrate Expernova as a tool into your internal workflow, your internal processes, in terms of setting up new R&D projects, we've developed new features and adapted the older features in order to make it more possible to share information with other users of Expernova and with other members of your organization in order to speed up the decision-making process involved in the identification of scientific skills and the setting up of an R&D project. So, without further ado, let's take a look at what's new with this new version. So first and foremost, those of you who have connected to the tool since last Friday may have already seen that the interface has changed quite a lot. The idea of this new interface, we're still keeping the navigation as simple and user-friendly as possible. However, we're now providing different ways to search through the information, as I said earlier, creating new search parameters to make the tool more flexible and customizable to your strategic questions, to your user needs. What we'll be able to see is that there are 3 default searches now available for all users, and also possibilities to create personalized searches or presets in order to display the results of most interest to you, organize your results as you wish. And for this, you'll need to talk to your customer service representative, who will be able to set up these different use cases for you. In terms of the analysis of data, as I mentioned before, we have changed the way we're presenting the scientific profiles that we provide in order to facilitate the comprehension and interpretation of the results that Expernova provides you with. So as we'll see on the live demonstration of the tool, there will be an explanation as to why an expert or an organization has been identified as having expertise on a particular topic. The idea being this will facilitate your decision-making process and provide you with more detailed analysis to support your decisions. The collaborative networks that were available in the previous version have been vastly improved in order to make them much more powerful, providing a lot more detail and 100% interactive. So you'll be able to click through the different players that appear in these global ecosystems, and also export the graphic in order to be able to use that in smart presentations or send that to colleagues and actually take that visual away from the tool. And then lastly, something I touched upon earlier, the idea of integrating the tool into your internal workflow. So collaborative features which allow you to share your findings directly with your colleagues on the tool, and eventually, hopefully in the near future, to send that information to other people within your organization that don't have access to the tool, but directly from the platform. What is available currently are different export features as to what was available on the V3. You can now export all of the information that Expernova can provide you with in different forms of exports, which I'll be able to show you on the live version of this presentation. So, a couple of key points to remember before we move on to see the version 4. So, in terms of carrying out searches, keywords must be typed in English. This hasn't changed. All of the information in the Expernova database, whether it was originally in English or not, will be translated towards English. And in terms of carrying out a search, what's changed now is that instead of having one single search bar on the tool, you will have the option to select different search modes. So we'll be able to see this in just a second live on the tool. But essentially, you'll have these 3 default searches available straight away on your user space. The overview is the one that corresponds the most to what you're used to seeing in the version 3, giving you an overview of all of the information that Expernova can provide you with on the topic. However, instead of launching the search from the same search bar in order to search for a person or an organization, now you would select the type of search that you wish to carry out, and that allows you to change the way you look for a person or an organization, making that search much more efficient and quicker on the tool. Very quick reminder of the golden rules. So the operators that you can use with the system remain unchanged. We are still using the Boolean system on the tool. Key things to bear in mind are that you must type the operators in capital letters and leave spaces between the keywords and the operators, as you can see from all of the examples here. When looking for more than one keyword together and you're looking for a specific order that those keywords appear in the text, you must type them within quotation marks. And you can combine the different operators and add synonyms to your search by using the operator all and grouping the different parts of your search within parentheses or brackets. Okay, so without further ado, let's go on to the new version of the tool now. Hopefully my link will work. Now, the first time you come to Expernova after the version update went through last Friday, you may be redirected to our company website. What you will need to make sure is that you're signed in as a user. So you might have access to the tool with an Expernova trial use case here, and without your username here on the right-hand side. If that's the case, you'll need to click on the little person here and sign in with your username and password in order to get access to the tool. Once you have access to the tool, what you will see on your dashboard are these 3 default searches. The other personal searches are available on my user space, and they will be available to you once you've had a meeting with your customer experience manager about your projects, about the ways in which you're looking to use Expernova. And based upon that discussion, that person will set up personalized searches for you in order to start viewing your results in the way that's most relevant for you. But to start off with, what we'll be looking at today are these 3 default searches. Now, before I run an overview search, just to draw your attention to the help function here, this is available on all of the different workspaces of Expernova. So every time you open a new window or you look at a new feature, you'll automatically have a description of what you're looking at. You can obviously disable that function once you start getting used to how things work in order to make it easier to see what's being presented on your results page. So for now, as I'm here to guide you through the tool, we'll disable the help function for today. So the first thing I'm going to do is run an overview search to get a global overview of all of the information we can provide in terms of the key opinion leaders, the organizations and experts working on a topic. as well as the key scientific works available for that topic. So I click on my overview search. Here I can see it's been correctly selected, and then I can type my keywords. Now, we are still working with an auto-completion system, just like with the previous version. However, this time the system is a lot faster, a lot more efficient, and so I do recommend that you have a look at the list of words that come out automatically, and try and select from that list if, obviously, your words are there. Another little thing to bear in mind is that when you type a keyword search, you don't have the option to press enter from your keyboard. You actually have to click on the search button, like this. Now, normally, with this new version, it's a lot quicker than the previous version, as we can see straight away. So within a few seconds, I can get an overview of a large number of experts who have scientific works published on photonic crystal, organizations, once again, with scientific works published on the topic, and then the number of scientific works, patents grouped by family, and internationally funded projects published on the topic of photonic crystal. Now, each of these icons will direct me to the workspace to see the full list of that category. I equally have the full list links available here in my menu on the left-hand side. This menu, this section in grey here, will always be available. This won't change. So here I have the option to create bookmarks, which is something that I'll show you at the end of today. I have the option to export whatever I'm looking at in my main window to an Excel file. And I have the option to change the workspace that I'm looking at in order to change the category of information that I wish to discover. Much like with the V3, on your results page, you will have the top results for each category available on the solution and some graphic analyses summarizing the total number of results. So each one of these graphic analyses is now enlargeable. You'll have options here when you see the three dots here, so I can make that graphic bigger in order to see in more detail. I can also export all of the graphics now to an image file. So that's something that wasn't available on the previous version, and that will allow me to integrate these graphics into smart presentations or print them or send them to colleagues. The graphic that's most notably changed, as I mentioned earlier, is my collaborative network. So if I enlarge this here, those of you who don't remember the previous version of this feature, it was a very 2D version. It was not interactive. It wasn't particularly clear. And we've managed to vastly develop that in order to show you the key organizations, not just R&D labs and companies, but other organizations as well, that have co-published scientific works on your topic of interest, in this case, photonic crystal. Now you can see that I can zoom in and out. I also have the option of turning on my fisheye lens in order to automatically zoom over the organizations that I hover over. Take that off for a second. And then each time that I hover over any of the organizations present in my global network, I'll be able to see in bold their direct partners with whom they've co-published scientific works on photonic crystal. Clicking on any of the key players will open up the overview of the profile for that key player. So summarizing why they're featuring in this global network in terms of their experience on photonic crystal. Now, in terms of explaining this information and how it can be used, I'll come to that a little bit later when I go on to explain the scientific profiles and the way we're now presenting this information. But just to show you that all of them are clickable, so when we see an acronym, for example, when we wish to know what this organization is, we click on it and we can see their profile directly. This graphic is also exportable, and what's important to bear in mind is that when you choose to export it, you will be able to export what you see on the screen. So I can choose to export the full collaboration network by zooming out, and then obviously I'll be able to digitally zoom in my my picture that I will generate with the export image. Or if I was particularly interested in a particular part of this ecosystem, I can export just the section of the ecosystem that I'm currently looking at on the screen. Okay, so going back to our results page, as you can see, you have all of the other graphics that were available in the version 3. In each case, you've got the help function, which you can click on in order to get an explanation of exactly how the graphic's been generated and exactly what it's showing. You've also got, obviously, your related concepts, which, if you remember rightly from previous training sessions, are showing the other scientific concepts related to your search words, which are found most commonly across the total number of results identified for this topic. At the bottom here, we have the data upon which all of this analysis has been based. So the top publications, patent families, and projects found on photonic crystal. Now, if you remember, everything on Expernova is still ranked in terms of relevance to your topic, in this case, photonic crystal. And the way we're doing that, just to remind you, is taking into account 4 different criteria. So we're looking at all of the different data. We're going to search for the keywords, in this case photonic crystal, look at the number of times those keywords are repeated throughout the different data, the position of those keywords in the data, and the type of scientific work and the date of publication. So 4 criteria which are used to create a relevance factor on Expernova in order to rank all of the scientific works by relevance to your topic. From there, we can then rank the authors, the inventors, so the individual researchers that have published that information, and then from there, the organizations that they work for. And this is the factor that is used to rank all of the information shown on this results page. In terms of carrying out a literature search, you still have the option to do that with Expernova. So once you've identified a publication or a patent family, a project that's of particular interest to you. So I'm just refreshing my search here. You can, for example, click on any of the data that you can see in your search in order to get access to the abstract, the list of keywords, and opening that up once again, so to the next level, I can then get access to the profiles of the different authors for this scientific document, as well as the link to the source database in order to access the full text of the document. The affiliations in terms of the organizations to which this document has been attributed are also available on this window. So all of these links are clickable. They will take you to, for example, the scientific profile of this author, so I can see their expertise on this topic. As I said, I'll come back to explain the profiles in just a second. At no point will you be required to use your backspace button on Expernova. Each time you open a new window, you'll have the option to close it, and in each case you have obviously the option to open up different windows to navigate through the different workspaces on the tool. So scrolling back up, I'm now going to look at my different workspaces available for the different categories of key players, people and organizations that have expertise on photonic crystal in this case. So for example, if I take my list of companies, I can click to expand my list, or either by clicking on the more or by clicking on these arrows here. And I'll be taken to my organization's workspace with the companies automatically being filtered for me. So as you can see, we do have different filters available. You can filter by the country in which the organization is based. You can also filter by the type of organization. So here I've accessed this workspace through my company section on my results page, so companies are automatically selected. However, if, for example, in the search for potential research partners, I was interested in R&D labs as well as companies, I could equally select R&D labs to have a mix of the top organizations of the 2 types with expertise on photonic crystal in this case. Now, The order of the organizations is automatically ordered by the relevance factor, which I explained earlier. If I then obviously will need to see why these organizations have been identified as having expertise on the topic, I simply click on the organization to get an overview of their expertise. So now I'll go into detail and explain the different ways we are now presenting the profiles. So we've introduced what we like to call the why profile. So what we're doing here is explaining the reason why Thales Group has been identified as having expertise on the topic of photonic crystal. So the first section, experience, will look at the total number of scientific works that Thales Group has on photonic crystal and summarize their level of experience based on whether they're internationally recognized, based on how long they've been working on the topic, based on whether they've recently published on the topic, whether they're a newcomer to the field, whether they're a veteran in the field, etc. So a summary of their experience based on their scientific works. Their scientific works are equally available. So, for example, if I wanted to have a look at the different documents published by Thales Group on photonic crystal, I simply click on that option, and I will be taken to my workspace of the scientific documents published by Thales on photonic crystal. So I'll be able to see the types of scientific documents published, the domains equally to which they've been attributed, and I'll be able to filter through the different documents published by Thales on the topic. Each time I wish to export this information, I simply click on my export option here on the left-hand side, which will always be there. And once I start selecting different filters, all of my filters will be taken into account by my exports. Equally, here we've got the top 25 results. However, I can make that up to 100, and by changing that, I will then be able to export the top 100 results, taking into account obviously my different filters for the documents published by Thales Group on photonic crystal in this case. Closing that off, I'll go back to my overview of Thales' expertise. I have then the section Network and Community. So in order to see Thales' scientific partners with whom they've co-published scientific works on the topic of photonic crystal, I can see they have 92 different partners. By clicking on that, I can get an overview of those partners. So first of all, I'll have the top partners here in a graphic. Much like with the V3, the thickness of the line is indicating the relative volume of scientific works co-published by Thales in this case and their different partners. By clicking on any one of their partners, I'll be able to get the overview of the expertise of that partner on photonic crystal. It's laid out in exactly the same way as the profile we had open for Thales. And the full list of scientific partners on this topic is available below. Once again, with links to the scientific profiles of each of these different organizations, summarizing their expertise on photonic crystal. So this graphic is also exportable to an image file, but once again by clicking on my menu in the bottom right-hand corner of the graphic. The other pieces of information available in this section are the projects, for example, that Thales has integrated on photonic crystal. In each case, I'll be able to open up any one of the projects in order to get a description. And by opening it up once again, I can get more information about the project. I can get a link to the project database from which we've sourced the information in order to get more information once again, and links to the profiles of the different participants. Once again, on my workspace I have different filters available and the option to export the information shown on the screen. And then lastly, just as with the V3, we're still providing you with the level of detail in terms of the different subsidiaries that make up each large organization that equally have expertise on this topic. So in order to see the different divisions and get links to the profiles for them that have expertise on photonic crystal based on Thales Group, I simply click to open this different workspace, and equally I have links to the different profiles for each of the subsidiaries and divisions. And lastly, in terms of the experts based at Thales Group with scientific works published on photonic crystal, I also have a link to get the full list there. Now, as we can see, if I select one of the experts from the list, I will automatically get an overview of their profile in terms of their expertise on photonic crystal. And once again, as you can see, it's laid out in exactly the same way. So all of the links are clickable, and they will take you through the different workspaces that I've just shown you for an organization. Now, once I want to look at the organization on a general level, so moving away from my topic of photonic crystal, I can open up their general profile. So this will expand, and this will give me, once again, as with the V3, an overview in terms of description of the group, access to the different subsidiaries, divisions that make up Thales Group, with links obviously to their individual profiles, contact and address information, a summary of their expertise in terms of the different scientific concepts on which they most regularly publish, a summary of their key figures, key statistics in terms of number of experts working at the group, number of scientific documents, patent families, projects, and scientific partners. These colors, as you can see, are recurrent throughout the different workspaces, the different parts of the tool on your results page as well, and within the graphics. So we can see on the graphic for works evolution, orange for patent families, yellow for documents, and red for projects. So we can see quite clearly that Thales has a large number of patent families, and we can see the way that changes over time. Equally, scientific domains to which their scientific works are attributed, an overview of their best connections. So this is, once again, on a global level. Opening this up will direct me to see a graphic of their global scientific partners. So this is on all of the different topics for which Thales Group has expertise, laid out in exactly the same way as the previous type of connection graphic that we saw. Once again, all of the different organizations are clickable, and they will open up the profile for that organization. The top experts based at the organization in terms of the number of scientific works they have to their name, the top partners in terms of the volume of co-published scientific works, and then their access to their scientific documents, patent families, projects, obviously with a link to each of the full lists in their separate workspaces. So for example, if I show you the workspace for the scientific documents published by Thales Group, here we've obviously got a summary of the type and domain, different filters available once again, and also the option to conduct a sub-search. So once we're on the profile for an organization or an expert, we could search once again by a different keyword in order to look through all of their different documents that may contain that search word. Okay, so now we understand the different ways that the scientific profiles are now shown on Expernova. What I'd like to do is go back to my dashboard and very briefly show you how you can now search for a person or an organization. So in terms of searching for an organization, I simply obviously select my organization's directory, and then I can start typing the name of my organization. I can now search for an organization name by acronym. So for example, if I'm looking for NASA, typing NASA will obviously bring up the full name of NASA in my auto-completion system. Clicking on that will open up my summary of NASA's profile. Clicking on open will open up the full profile for me. So as you can see, with this organizations directory, your search will be much quicker because you won't have to pass through the results page in order to find organizations with name, etc. You should be able to find the organization in the auto-completed list of organizations that will appear once you start typing your word. You can also search for an organization with a location. So for example, if I typed Siemens and Germany, I'd be able to get a list of the different parts of Siemens that are based in Germany. So starting with obviously the headquarters. So the largest organization in the list will appear at the top. So this one should be the headquarters of Siemens Group, as we can see. We can see how many different divisions make up that group here as well, based in Germany. In terms of searching for an expert, I simply choose my experts directory, and then once again I can simply type the first name and surname of my experts. If I take one of the experts that we saw earlier on photonic crystal, I can see that his name has appeared in the list here. I simply click on my expert, and I'll be taken to the overview of his profile, opening up that to the full profile of my expert. So those are the different types of searches that will be available by default on your user space. As I said, in terms of having access to personalized searches, you'll need to approach your customer experience representative to talk about the different options available, and they will set up the ones that are most relevant to you. The last things to show you today are the different features that are available to help you integrate the tool into your internal workflow. So, for example, we still have bookmark features available, much like with any other search engine. So in order to bookmark different searches, so for this I'll have to go obviously back to my overview search. If I run my search once again on photonic crystal, I can see that I have 3 dots here, so a menu, next to my search bar, which gives me the option to add the search to my bookmark. Now, when I create a new bookmark, I can either simply create it, or I can create a new folder. So I'll do this very quickly for photonic crystal. It would help if I could type. There we go. I can create a description, etc. And as you can see, I now have the option to share this folder with other members of my organization. So here I have a list of my different colleagues. For example, if I wanted to make this folder available to my colleague, Monsieur Senegal, I have the option to either let him access the folder in a read-only format, in which case he'd be able to launch the searches or the profiles that I'm going to put in this folder, or I could give him administrative rights as well, which should let him add to the folder, take things away from the folder, etc. So we could actually work on a project together on Expernova each time we conduct a search of particular interest, adding that to the folder, making that available to the other person. Each time we find a profile of interest, obviously, once again, adding that to the folder. And the next time the person connects to Expernova, they'll have the updated version of that folder in order to have a look at my progress on that particular project. So once I've created my folder, I will now have the option to add the bookmark to my different folders, so my default folder here. In order to access my bookmarks, I come to my menu on the left-hand side, and as we can see, I have my photonic crystal folder here, with my search already added to my folder. In terms of bookmarking a profile, So if I open up the DTU Photonic, this is one of the top R&D labs, I have different ways of bookmarking this profile. So every time we see these little tags here, that indicates the option to create a bookmark. And once again, I can either simply create it, create a new folder, or add it to one of my existing folders. So here I'm going to add it to my photonic crystal folder. You'll have a confirmation of your bookmark, and as you can see here, your little tag will go yellow. In terms of an expert, it works in exactly the same way. I can either bookmark them here, or if I'm on the full version of the profile, I still have this option here, or the option on the left-hand side. I add that to my folder here. And then I can see that my bookmarks have automatically been added to my folder on Photonic Crystal. I can then change the options in terms of managing those who have access to the folder, editing the folder, etc. Okay. So with that, that brings us to the end of everything I had to present to you in terms of the new features and the changes that have been made to Expernova through the transition to the version 4. What remains for me to mention is that this year we are very much focusing on the relationships we have with all of our clients and encouraging them to approach us to work more closely with us, notably with their customer experience representative, in order for us to continue in the evolution of the tool, the development of the tool, the features, the services we can provide, in order to provide you with more added value and to adapt the tool to your individual needs. So, as you can see, you have different support services available which are part of your subscription to the tool at no further cost. So please don't hesitate to get in contact with your customer experience representative if you do feel that you'd like to take advantage of any of those support services. The first step after this webinar will be a short telephone meeting, usually with your customer experience representative between now and the end of the month, to give you a little bit of time to start using the new version. And then once you've carried out a few searches, got things going on your user account, the idea being is to have a little discussion about the projects that you're looking to set up with the tool. And for your customer experience representative to be able to make different personalized searches available to you.